What's going on, top guys? It's an Extreme Life of Matt Hardy bonus episode for the month of April. Ask Matt anything. What's going on, Matt Hardy? You love getting a chance to answer the top guys' questions, don't you?
Well, hell, top guys and top gals, to be here with you at this moment in time is absolutely outstanding.
I knew it would be. Where are you coming to us from this week, Matt?
I am in Pittsburgh, or Pittsburgh, as some of the AAW writer calls it.
You'll have the terrible towel out there?
I would guess. They'll probably be swinging it.
Okay. All right.
They'll be going nuts, especially she's coming back here in a babyface role.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Big deal there. Well, we'll have our normal episode, The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, dropping this week, of course. And we wanted to get you guys your little ad-free shows bonus. We asked you guys for your Ask Matt questions. Matt is here to answer them. Are you ready, my friend?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, let's get this one from Philip. Good question here. Since most wrestlers are right-handed, how much do you have to adjust when wrestling someone who is left-handed?
Not a lot. It really doesn't change much of anything. I mean, the basic structure of the way you work, just kind of within the confines of the rules and fundamentals of wrestling, pretty much stays the same. And I think if you're a seasoned vet, a seasoned pro, you just kind of get used to reacting if it's a right hand swinging at you or a left hand swinging at you. You know, you just kind of move on reaction. So it doesn't really change that much.
Nothing to do with the lockup or footing or positioning or anything like that?
I mean, no, like the lockup standard, even if someone's left-handed, they're still going to lock up the same way, you know, and if someone is going to shoot you off the ropes, they're not going to change the hands. I mean, all that stuff stays universal, especially in American-style wrestling.
I love it. Good answer there. Scott Golden asks, what was the hardest bump to learn to take? Are there any moves you avoid taking?
Anything that will hurt me now. I try and avoid. The hardest bump to learn how to take, when I was like young and invincible and indestructible, there wasn't anything that I was afraid to take or wouldn't take. Maybe I would say a backdrop was one of the trickier things, and that's something I don't do now, because a backdrop is one of those things, like, especially in my scenario, in my situation, because my hips and my lower back are so beat up. If you would over rotate on a backdrop and like land in that position, like around your tailbone and coccyx, that would be brutal for me. So like I usually opt out of those. I can't think. It's been a long time since I've taken a backdrop. I'll leave it at that. But that would probably be the answer of the thing I probably would avoid the most.
People really don't understand sometimes just how difficult the concept of a bump is. Think of it this way. If you were to fall back right now, your natural instinct would be to use your arm to brace your impact because you're about to fall backwards. But when you're doing even a standard flat back, you have to train your brain not to think that way. It's so different.
I mean, it is. You just try and displace all the force in equal area, in equal spaces. You know, you try and hit with your back and your feet and your ass and your hands and your triceps all at the same time. You know, that's kind of like the secret of a bump. And it's not something that's natural until you do it for year after year after year and then make it instinctual.
Great question from Brad here. Says, you have a strong, opinionated wife like I do. How do you handle times when you know you're in trouble?
I just don't do things that get me in trouble, my man. You know what I mean? I steer clear of trouble. There'll be times where still, if you're with a strong, opinionated woman, you can't win, especially with children, because the children will do something and you'll end up taking the heat for it because you were the one watching them at that time, even though if you are actually innocent in the big scheme of things. You just learn how to deal with it. She gets angry, you just let her rant and rave and do her thing. And then I'll come at her with sense, you know, and then I'll talk at her with, you know, common sense, and I'll talk at her with like common decency, and things will work out all right. I could teach a master class on how to diffuse Rebecca Hardy right now, because I have learned very well over the last decade.
Any bribery involved?
No, not a lot of bribery. I mean, but she's definitely open for taking a bribe, much like a WWE judge. If they said bribe them with Jack Daniels so that you get off the case, I'm sure you could bribe her with something that she would like, some sort of stylish outfit, or I would redecorate a room for her in the house, and I could probably, you know, get off the hook when it came to being in trouble, because she can't sit still. She has to be redecorating. Things have to change. Things have to evolve over and over. She asked me, like, what do you think? What do you think? I was like, I don't really care. I'm very simple. I'm very easy. Even like the room that we just recently had, which was coined the shop room, which we kept, and we put all these all this shelving, all these different shelves and different cabinets and containers to put stuff when we had Shop Matt Hardy, when I was doing my own stuff, when I was doing Ring of Honor, Independence, TNA, Independence, and whatnot. She just stripped all that stuff down and we put it away, and she started redecorating that room. She just bought some old expensive ass antique bed. I flipped the bill for that. So it's like I do enough goodwill that she understands. Just kind of deal with me. I'm different. Just deal with me.
Rumor and innuendo has it that even an edible arrangement might get the job done. So just throwing that out there.
Sometimes it is a positive,
even if they don't deliver to Bumblefuck. But anyway, Brad Wise wants
to deliver to the forest.
The forest. Stokely Hathaway threatened to have the DirecTV cut off for Maxwell, and I tweeted from the podcast guy, I said, buddy, DirecTV don't serve the forest. You got no leverage there over Maxwell on that. Brad Wise wants to know, Matt, are all pre-tapes day of? How often is it that you'd film stuff for well into the future? That's a good question, because that's actually pretty relevant to some stuff you've done recently.
It's pretty rare considering our schedules now at AAW. The only time you would tape something for the future is if you can't be there the following week, or you're not going to be there the following week. But typically, and I would say 98% of the time, 98 to 99% of the time, it is done day of, because that's kind of how things are written. Because, once again, Tony Khan jumped in deep, doing 2 television shows, and plus there's all this other content he's putting out. And, you have to produce new content every single week. So things change all the time, very rapidly, very quickly. Someone gets hurt. Someone can't compete because they get sick, or whatever may happen. Things change a lot. So usually things are done day of, and that's almost like the safest way to kind of keep everything on track. And there are some things, like, for instance, this match that we're having, at the Hardy compound coming up, the firm deletion, that will be done in advance. It won't be done day of. It'll probably be done not too long in advance, so there'll be a quick turnaround on it whenever it's done. But it is one of those things which I think it's going to be extremely entertaining. It's going to be very different. This one isn't going to be fantastical like some of the older ones have, but it's going to be incredibly amazing. And I think it's so cool that we have these 8 great competitors to play around with and interact with. And once again, I got to reference that Stokely Hathaway promo, and then the King Maxwell promo following that. What a hell of a promo Maxwell did. Like, his expression, that's the first time he's ever been able to do like a promo and like look upset or mad, not act like a little kid. Like, he had the little fur in his brow, and he's like, you think you're going to cancel my DirecTV? The only thing getting canceled is you. And that was his idea. He said, can I do my hand like this, Dad? Is that good? The way he turned his hand at the camera, that was totally his. And I said, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. And I said, I think we should keep it short, impactful, and nail it. And he had so much fun. When he watched that Stokely Hathaway promo, he said, oh, he's saying bad words. And then, like, he laughed when he said, I'm going to cancel your Disney Channel, which was very funny. Max was like, ha, ha, ha. He like genuinely laughed. He said, oh, like, he's going to cancel my Disney Channel so I can only watch Nick Jr. Okay, big deal.
Big pop. Yeah, but it's not uncommon, though, too. Like, you might tape something Wednesday that airs on Rampage as a pre-tape, for example.
Oh, no. That happens, yeah, quite often. But, it sounded like from the question, Rampage, as most people know, unless it's live, it's taped on Wednesday. That's no secret. So that content is all done that day. Obviously, the Elevation are done the day, unless we're doing Ring of Honor. And I think it might go like back and forth week after week. It might be Elevation one week, it might be Ring of Honor the following week, whatever. But as far as like taping ahead, like on the whatever TV show you're actively doing, as far as taping ahead a week ahead, that is very rarely done.
Sure. Josh Henney, piggybacking on this, do you have a story that will spin off the current angle with Ethan Page now that Jeff's back? Any tag team runs in the future? I do love the current story and could see more.
Yeah, we already have an idea of a way to take this current story once it kind of ends with the firm, and I think it's going to make a lot of people happy that have enjoyed our story through and through. So, like when we're calling this match the firm deletion, I think it really is going to be the deletion of the firm when it's all said and done. And there are a couple ideas. Obviously, Jeff's back, so we're going to be really we're going to be delving into the tag team scene, and we're going to be looking to try and fight our way back up the mountain to get another shot at the AEW World Tag Team titles. And we do have a couple ideas about directions that we could go out of that, but there's going to be some little twist, I think, where the Hardy Party is going to be evolving and changing a little bit. But I think it's going to be a small handful of guys that are still going to be associated with myself and Jeff, and maybe the Hardy Party is our faction's name.
Yeah, it's always something to go back to the well with, too. You have for different stories and all that. I like that. Plus, it's great timing for you guys. You got Double or Nothing coming up. You got Forbidden Door coming up. All In coming up at the end of the summer. It's a good time right now for the Hardy Boys, and I'm excited to see where you guys go on that front. Top Guy Eddie Prather says, Matt, what are some of your favorite movies from each of these genres? Drama, action, horror, and comedy.
Okay. Wow, that's so tricky for me. I'm just such not a movie person in this day and age. Even thinking back, like one of my first early favorite movies was The Crow. Maybe I could say that for like drama. Okay. Action is like Avengers, Infinity War. I think that was great.
There you go.
What else do we have in there?
Horror and comedy.
Horror, big fan of the Friday the 13th movies.
Okay.
I enjoyed those quite a bit. And when it comes to comedy, oh God, I'm sure there's.
What's the funniest movie Matt Hardy's ever seen?
Oh my God. Maybe The Naked Gun. I don't know. There's several. I remember being young, and I thought that movie was insane.
Buddy, there's a reason you and I got such great chemistry. The Naked Gun. The Naked Gun is my second favorite movie of all time. So that is. And by the way, for all of you naysayers, it is a baseball movie as far as I'm concerned, because I must kill the Queen.
Yeah.
Iconic movie. Oh, that popped me huge. Legit. Good stuff there. Let's see. We got Ryan, great comment here. He says, Matt, this is not really a question, but I'm just hoping you see this. In September of 2021, I met you in person for the first time ever at a convention in Philly at the ECW Arena. I told you that you had saved my life when you did a cameo video for me. I just want you to know that I'm still doing well and I'm inspired by you each and every day. Thank you for being an incredible human being.
Very cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I remember meeting you. That was at ECW Arena, if I'm not mistaken. That was the night that I said I had a surprise tag team partner coming, and Mark Quinn came out and trolled everybody in the ECW Arena to the Hardy Boys music, and it was a fun little night. But yeah, I do remember meeting you that night, and I said I remember you told me it was specifically over a cameo, and I thought that was really cool. Like it's important to me to try and give people an experience whenever I do a cameo or if I'm at an autograph signing, speaking with someone. And I just know if someone I was a big fan of, someone that I looked up to, someone that I admired and watched on TV for many years, treated me kindly and gave me a great experience, I would be a fan of those people for life. So I try and generally do that the same. And on top of everything, I like doing that with people in generally. I like, having conversations, and I like speaking, and I like learning things about them. And I love hearing people that have overcome challenges and difficulties in their life to move to a better period of their life.
Ryan, wishing you all the best. Great to hear you're doing well. We appreciate you chatting us up here. Good question from Braden, Matt. He says, which AEW wrestler has stuck out to you as a future star that we may not necessarily see quite yet?
I mean, someone that I think is still going to be a big deal is Wardlow. I mean, that's one person that first stands out to me. I mean, when you talk about other guys that are coming in that are new and really haven't reached a level of relevancy like Wardlow has yet. Gosh, let me think about that. Let me go back because I'm sure there's guys. I'm definitely fine.
Maybe they're on the Ring of Honor roster right now.
Could be. I still think both the Lucha Bros. I think both of those guys can do a lot of stuff as singles as well. They're set as a tag team, but I think both of those guys are so talented, and I think they're both talented in very different ways too. I think they're very different from one another, and in a lot of ways, they remind me of myself and Jeff. With obviously Penta being me, and Phoenix being Jeff. But those are two guys I think will be single stars once all said and done, especially if they can stay healthy. But as far as like young guys got, I'm trying to think.
Dude, I still don't think we've even seen a quarter of how promising Daniel Garcia is.
Daniel Garcia, that's a great answer. Daniel Garcia is a great answer.
I don't even think we've seen a quarter of how promising he's going to be. I think he's going to be one of the biggest stars in wrestling at some point. And I think your boy Sammy G too.
Yeah. I mean, Sammy G once again, like Wardlow, I think he has been able to obtain a little relevancy, but I do think he's going to go further as well.
Let's ask about Sammy G. Coach Rosie wants to know, and we'll be doing an episode on this in the future at some point. Says, Matt, I'm so excited for the upcoming cinematic match. You've taken some big bumps, but the lead-up and match at All Out versus Sammy Guevara had some bumps that really scared me for your well-being. After 2 years, what are your thoughts on that program with Sammy back in 2020?
I mean, we did a lot of really good stuff in that program. It was almost cursed was the word a lot of people say, like snake bitten. And it's just the thing he did with the chair. He just quickly overreacted when he threw it at me, and we went in the back and we squashed it. And it was one of those things that added a lot of momentum to our deal. And then just the deal whenever we raised that forklift a little too high and I didn't get those tables moved back, and then I hit my head on the concrete and I got knocked out. I mean, it sucked and it was rough, but it's also wrestling. Like shit happens, So it's just like it's not like it was some terrible tragedy that we like made this terrible miscalculation about. There was some stuff that we could have done a little bit better, but I mean, sometimes it happens in wrestling. I mean, one thing about it, what we do isn't normal. Human beings slamming their vessels, their human bodies on wood and steel is not normal in the first place. So there are things that are going to happen, and especially when you're in a match like that and you're trying to take some chances to do stuff that is really spectacular and entertain the people, it's possible something can happen. And unfortunately for me and us, it went awry, in that occasion. So it sucked, but I'm just very happy I went. And they made me stay in the hospital overnight because I'd already taken 3 tests. They made me take a 4th, and there was nothing wrong with me, no bleeding, no swelling. Everything was absolutely normal, 100%. I took a few weeks off, which was the right thing to do, and then came back and was good from everything, So fortunately, I wasn't hurt worse than I was.
We'll get that story in long form one day on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Make sure you're subscribed, guys. Obviously, you're ad-free show subscribers, so make sure you're checking it out every single week.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Coach. Always good to hear from Coach Rosie.
Josh Fields, another longtime fan of the podcast. Does Matt have a favorite rainy or snowy day meal? I love a good grilled cheese and a bowl of chicken noodle soup, he says. What's your go-to?
Ooh, that does sound good. On a snowy day, I do love something hot. On a snowy day, I would love a nice steak. I wouldn't even be opposed to having like a nice burger, some sort of meat that tasted nice and hearty and also very warm.
I like the sound of that. Mike Whitaker wants to know, what's Matt's go-to at Arby's?
At Arby's, okay, that's a great question. Arby's was my jam, especially years ago. I would love it, and my go-to back then was always like the beef and cheddar. That was my thing, beef and cheddar with Arby's sauce. Maybe put a little bit of horsey sauce on it. I would kill it. Now they have a couple of wraps that I like too. They have like some nice shredded chicken that I like that you can get in a couple different wraps and sandwiches and whatnot. But Arby's isn't a place that I head to that often nowadays. But I would say in the big scheme of things, I have to be honest and go with the beef and cheddar. That would be my main jam at Arby's.
Back in the 90s, the Simpsons used to shit all over Arby's. There's a famous scene where I think Lisa says, "I'm so hungry I could eat at Arby's," and Bart goes, "Oh my God, she must be starving." So I always think of that.
And curly fries are good too, man. Curly fries are underrated.
Good stuff there. A wrestling historian, another longtime listener, says, "When did you know that Rebby was the one?"
I think I wasn't sure. She was pretty crazy. Right from the start. But I think what really sold her on me is just that I knew I was going through some shit, and then like, as opposed to just like saying, "Okay, I'm throwing my hands up in the air and getting out of here," she like bared down on me, and that probably is because she is half-ass crazy, and she stuck with me and she rode me out, and she was on my ass every step of the way. And really helped me get my shit together. She was a very integral part of that.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew she was good, because she was in there, for the good and the bad. So I'll always remember that. There's times where she has really bad days and it's rough, but I'll never forgive. I'll never forget, and always be appreciative of those days that she stuck with me through the dark times I had in my life.
Yeah. When we had her, and this is great in the archives, if you guys haven't listened to this episode, we had her on as a guest where we talked about
Right.
a lot of that stuff, and it was pretty eye-opening and very honest, but it was a great conversation. Go check that out. I think that was down in August of last year. Go find that in the archive. Let's see. Shane says, "Good day, Matt. Do you have any memorable moments of wrestling down here in Australia?"
Good day, Shane. I always loved coming to Australia because the weather was so nice, such a beautiful place. And it was one of those places that I remember thinking when I was a young kid growing up in Cameron, Oklahoma, well, I'll never go to Australia. Just the fact that I was able to travel to Australia and have my travel paid for, and got to go there and wrestle was always so great. I just remember having a great time in Australia. I remember all of the people being very, very friendly, and I remember them being so excited whenever I would travel there with WWE. So just nothing but great memories. I don't have one distinct memory that really stands out from everything else, but I have nothing bad to say about Australia. Every time I was there, it was always a great experience.
Yeah, that Super Showdown show WWE did there. I don't believe you were on the card for that, but it was massive, man. They did it at this huge stadium. I think it was like 70,000 people in attendance. It was just wild stuff. Very, very cool. Let's keep going here. Let's go to a top guy, Mike Gallagher. Just thanks for your time, Matt Hardy. What were some of your favorite storylines growing up, and were you more of an NWA or a WWF fan?
That's a great question, Mike. I first really dug the NWA product. But then, like, once myself and Jeff saw the WWF product, it was just like glamour and glitz, and it was Hollywood and like larger than life, and just these characters were larger than life as well. I would watch NWA, and it seemed like a lot more real, so to say. It seemed like, like my dad and like my neighbor's dad, like beating one another's ass, like two country guys in a fight, just like all hell breaks loose. Where WWE was, just much more glamour and glitzy, but I also got to say, the first thing that made me fall in love with pro wrestling was the Macho Man winning the tournament at WrestleMania 4, which kind of, segued into him and Hulk Hogan as the Mega Powers and their break and everything else. But that is what really first made me love pro wrestling and made me want to be a pro wrestler. But I always enjoyed the Horseman. I was a big fan of Ric Flair because he was from Charlotte, North Carolina. I thought it was so cool. He was from the same state that, I was. The stuff he did with Sting, I loved a lot. I saw a lot of that earlier on. I love the stuff he did with Steamboat when he had those great matches. A little later on, they had that series, the trilogy of matches, if I'm not mistaken. The stuff with Crazy Terry Funk coming in there. All of that stuff I love so much. Seeing Great Muta, that was a huge deal for me. That was a huge deal for Jeff, too. A bunch of inspiration for Jeff was, Great Muta and Jushin Liger. That was the biggest things that inspired Jeff's whole Willow character anyway. So I love them both equally, I would say, but they did seem very different, which I thought was cool in that time.
I think one day we'll have to do some sort of an old NWA or WCW watch along of tape study of sorts of some of your favorite acts from back in the day on the podcast, and we can really break down what made them great. I think that would be a lot of fun to do something like that. Richie says, No Mercy 2000, which is a show we've covered in the archives, by the way.
Right.
What if it was the old school Los Conquistadores instead of Edge and Christian? How'd that have turned out?
I don't think we'd have made the same magic, brother. I think it was four guys that were in the right place at the right time, having the right match. And that was a magical moment that really, I've said this many, many times, it is the match where we turned the corner. We went from being WWE wrestlers to WWE superstars.
Uno y dos, as we covered in the podcast.
Yes.
Dos, just for whatever reason, couldn't get us over as Uno. Never was meant to be. Blue dot that dose, is what they said back in Gorilla. Pastor Tim says, you're one of the most creative minds in wrestling. I'd like to know who inspires you creatively outside of wrestling, like a director, an artist, a musician, etc.
I would think back to some of the stuff that just inspired me at different times. I would say with different personas I had and whatnot. I think in the beginning I was kind of just doing an extension of me more than anything else. But obviously, as I've talked about in length, the guy who created Solid Fingers, David Firth, he's an English guy, cartoonist. I thought that was very creative, especially being something that was fantastical. And there's guys that I've got to give props to, like Michael C. Hall, the guy who played Dexter, Matthew McConaughey, when he played Rustin Cole, uh, Alexander Skarsgård in True Blood, which he was one of the guys that was my favorite on that show, and he played Eric Northman, and those three guys, they had a lot of influence on the whole Broken Matt Hardy. Those three guys more than anybody else, I would guess. That's it. I mean, I think if there's guys that are actors, especially when they do something insane to play a role, that I find that very inspiring. I mean, I think the whole Heath Ledger really indulging himself into the whole Joker thing was very inspirational. I think when what's brother's name that played Batman there for a second that lost all the weight at that time when he did The Machinist, Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christian Bale. Like even that, I mean, that's so great because Matthew McConaughey actually did that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like for someone to lose an insane amount of weight over a role is like so amazing, or to beef up.
The method acting.
Yeah, it takes a lot of dedication to do that. So those are the things I think that inspire me.
It was David Firth was the Salad Fingers guy.
Yes. So I was right the first time, David Firth.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, those influences are certainly there. If you watch Matt Hardy's work, you can see all that stuff. Lauren wants to know, with Forbidden Door 2 coming up in June, tongue twister, is there someone Matt would like to wrestle from New Japan?
Sure. Give me and Jeff the IGWP Tag Team Champions.
The IWGP Tag Team?
Yeah, IWGP Tag Team Champions.
I mean, I want to see you guys in the Aussie Open. That's a match I want to see.
Yeah, there we go. Aussie Open. That'd be fun.
I think Aussie Open is unbelievable. And I give Tony Khan a lot of credit for exposing them to American audiences on a bigger stage.
Right.
I think Kyle and Mark are just absolutely killer performers who are very much on the path to going down as some of the best of their generation, quite frankly. That's how highly I think of them. I'd love to see you guys. Any singles guys in New Japan that you'd like to maybe throw down with? Maybe a Juice Robinson type, someone like that.
Sure. I mean, that'd be fun. Jay White, Juice Robinson.
Well, Jay White's one of your boys now.
Yeah, no, he is. He's there. Naito.
Naito. You and Tanahashi would have a fun match. He's very sports entertaining.
Yeah. I do know that. Yeah.
I could see that. I like that. I like the sound of all of that. Hey, you never know. Forbidden Door 2 coming up in Toronto. So it will truly be an international affair going down in AEW this year. Let's see. Let's get a couple more in, and then we will wrap things up on this special Top Guys and Top Gals edition here. Adam wants to know, what is your all-time favorite moment that you've been involved in any promotion?
It's so hard to name your favorite moment or your favorite match. It's like asking me to name my favorite child. It's difficult. I mean, one of the first things that stands out when I think about it is just winning the WWE World Tag Team titles the very first time from the Acolytes, because that was like our whole dream, right? Like we kind of completed the journey, even though we were still so young. That was an amazing moment. The tag team ladder match, No Mercy 2000, was an amazing moment. Very, very special. All of the triangle ladder match, the triple threat matches, returning at WrestleMania 33 was a huge moment. Having the final deletion, everybody was so nervous. The feedback for the next 24 hours was insane. After that, it was so crazy. But still so amazing because we kind of like bet on ourselves, and so did the company, and it half-ass worked out. I mean, there's been a lot that have been very, very cool. Anytime Jeff and I win a new tag team title, that's like a major deal. Really, really cool. So there's been so many. I've been so blessed to have so many amazing moments in my wrestling career. Patrick
wants to know your favorite Matt fact.
I think it's got to be Matt strongly dislikes mustard. I'm pretty certain that's the one that is most remembered. That is the one that fans, people come up to me, cons and autograph signings, and they bring up more than anything else. So that is probably my favorite Matt fact. And actually the one I'm going to be using on the episode this week is going to be very interesting because it is going to play off of that one a little bit.
All right, we got two more, and then we're going to wrap things up. Bryant wants to know, I recently rewatched your Iron Man tag team match you and Jeff had against the Bar. My question is, how do you structure an Iron Man match like this? Was there talk of you having a 60-minute match, or was it always designed to go 30? And do you prefer Iron Man matches with a lot of falls like yours, or a more low-scoring one? And before you answer all those questions, Matt, I want to say we're going to cover this in long form. But yeah, how do you structure a match like that? Do you think it should have gone longer? And do you prefer the more falls or the fewer falls?
No, I mean, we were allowed to do 30 minutes because we really weren't in a position to be a 60-minute Ironman match because we weren't slotted like that on the show, on the card. But we were cool with the 30 minutes. And we had different ideas. There was a couple of different trains of thoughts. And I kind of liked the fact that we did it and ran up the falls a little bit. And I actually like that concept just depending on the story you're telling in the specific match. You know, I do like sometimes the low number of falls, maybe one fall, maybe just a couple falls, and I do like the story of running the falls up if it fits the scenario. And I think at that time we had worked the Bar. That was so we had dropped the titles to them too, right? At that time they were the champions coming into that match, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it was okay. I think it fit the story that we did a lot of falls in this match because we knew each other real well and we knew how to beat each other real well because we'd had many matches by that point in time. So, I mean, you try to put those matches together where you can still keep the match entertaining throughout the first part of the match, even though people know shit really ain't going to happen. Like for the first 20 minutes, they know like the last 10 minutes, that's when, you really get down to the wire and you really want to build drama and you want to have suspense, and pull for a team or, hope someone loses a fall, whatever it may be. And I feel like those last 5 to 10 minutes. Those are the most important. And you really try and structure those so you can put like drama in those and suspense.
I think the Bar are some of the most underrated. I think they are one of the most underrated tag teams in WWE history, quite frankly. And I'm very excited to talk about that feud in long form with you. Hopefully we can get Claudio on the podcast to discuss it with us because that would be a lot of fun. I'd love to hear some of the thoughts on that. Let's get our final question from Bar.
Hopefully if Sheamus comes on, he won't kick my tooth out like he did.
That's true. That's true. We definitely would not want that. But Arturo's got our final question. He says, what conditions would Matt have in order to accept a WWE Hall of Fame induction with Jeff at some point?
I mean, I wouldn't have any personal conditions. I mean, basically, if WWE offered it and we were with AEW and they were cool with it and Tony Khan was cool with it, I'd be cool with it. I mean, I definitely plan on going into the WWE Hall of Fame at some point in my career. And I would accept that as a big honor. And I think it's something that will happen. It's just I could see myself staying in AEW for the remainder of my active wrestling career too. So it just depends on how things line up. But I don't have any specifics that I would demand to go and be in the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, I think it's something right. It's something that would really be like a cherry on our career.
Would you have to go in with Jeff first before you got a solo induction? Because I think there's a case to be made for you to have a solo induction as well.
Yeah, Jeff and I mean, that's a conversation we both had. We would definitely want to go in at the same time first. If they did something later, then that's cool. But yeah, we would definitely want to go in together to begin with.
You're one of those few people, man, that you have a career that would warrant a Hall of Fame induction as both a singles guy and a tag team guy. So
thank you.
Pretty big feather to have in a cap. We wouldn't have this podcast if that wasn't the case. I can promise you that, because boy, howdy, do we need enough things to talk about on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, which I think we do a pretty good job at, my friend.
We have quite a bit.
Every single week here on ad-free shows and extremehardy.com. Matt Hardy loves the top guys, the top gals, and all the ad-free show subscribers. Yes, anything else you want to say to them, my friend?
No, just thank you guys for supporting this whole podcast network in general, but especially all the people. I know there's so many people that I recognize by name now, especially when I come across your post on Twitter, and I love to see it. Always keep listening to our show. Please keep commenting on our show, and if you can give us that 5-star review, we love to have it. So thank you, top guys, top gals. Thank you so much for letting me chat with you for 34 minutes or so.
Words have been spoken. We'll see you next time right here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Adios, mi amigos.